Hey there, my name is Niandra and I want to give some quick tips about playing around each ultimate as Mercy. Obviously, focus damage boost on this ulting enemy is an evergreen tip that could apply to everyone, so I'm going to avoid that unless I have more to add, or if there's literally nothing else. So let's get started with the tanks. With Reinhardt, I want to start this video off with the worst tip I have, just to be a bit spicy. So if you weren't aware, Earth Shatter does not travel over empty space such as pits like the Ilios well. Do I recommend hovering over these areas to dodge Shatter?
No.
Especially because the recent buff damage does apply if you're close but in the air. That being said, maybe one day you'll have a match where knowing this information is useful. As for actual advice, remember that Earth Shatter has a small vertical range, goes underneath the payload, and most teams will be looking to break your shields before using it. This means play from high ground and around corners when possible. You can usually tell when enemy Reinhardt has Earth Shatter because he'll stop using Fire Strike so much, so watch out for that and adjust yourself accordingly. With Erisa, she generally tries to hide her supercharger in the back or around corners, so it can be worth damage boosting allies positioning at off angles since they may have better sight. During Valkyrie, it takes roughly 2 seconds to destroy supercharger with your pistol, which can be worth it, but you'll need to use your own judgment on whether your team can afford you being occupied for that long. Plus, many Erisas will try to body block their supercharger by standing on top of it, so watch out for that as well. With Sigma, when I suspect he has ult, I intentionally keep distance from teammates, but my second support most of all, so only one of us can be picked up. When an ally is picked up, you can fly to them and hover in front of their face to body block some of Sigma's damage so they aren't killed on the drop back down. It's also really important to remember that a lot of Sigmas will use their ults in overtime to force people off the objective. There's a good chance you're going to have to be the one to touch if allies are picked up, especially because of how mobile you are. With Wrecking Ball, be careful not to linger near his mines because he may be looking to boop you into them. Also remember that mines no longer stick to walls, but some map geometry is curved in a way where they can still remain high up, so watch out for that. With Diva, if you are finding yourself caught out by her bomb more often than the occasional lucky angle, I think it can be worth looking at your overall positioning. Are you playing too close to the center of a fight? Are you spending too much time super jumping above a fight instead of playing the edges? Are you not aware of flankers sneaking up behind you looking to boop you into it? Also, unless there's no other choice, try to prioritize natural cover and terrain over shields in case the enemy tries to stun your Reinhardt or something. With Zarya, it's pretty easy to tell when she has ult because she plays more aggressively. For the most part, make sure you're keeping distance from allies when you suspect grab is ready. If you're comfortable speaking, please, for the love of God, tell your team when they're playing close together and just demand they spread out. Mercy generally positions behind the team, so she's really good at spotting this, and an early callout can literally mean the difference between a won or lost fight. If you do get caught in grab, look for an ally that's outside of it and hold down your Guardian Angel key so you can automatically fly to them once no longer stuck. With Winston, you want to make your movement unpredictable, which Mercy can do really well by cancelling Guardian Angel early or with medium height super jumps. Remember that Winston does damage whenever he lands on someone, so I try to keep myself off the ground where possible. Also, you can seemingly target allies through a Winston that's pushed you into a corner, so it can be worth holding down GA if trapped. With Roadhog, the main thing is if you get hit by his ult, you can hold down Angelic Descent to be pushed back further and hopefully into a safer position. Besides that, you mainly just want to avoid getting stuck in Whole Hog while Guardian Angel is on cooldown. With Doomfist, after I hear him use ult, I generally try to make sure I've got GA ready and not on cooldown. For starters, I want to be ready to fly away if needed, and secondly, Doom might be more inclined to target me if he knows GA is on cooldown. However, I do want to be careful because he might try to land in front of me, hoping I'll fly into it. Apart from that, super jumping is overall fantastic against Doom ult because he only does damage after he lands on the ground and none while landing. Now, Meteor Strike does have a vertical hitbox, but there's damage drop off the higher you go. That being said, you should also be careful about hovering near platforms or high ground he can land on because he may try to catch you out with that. With Hanzo, remember that you can fly through the width of the dragon and you'll take roughly 120 damage. Now, that is a lot, but if you're full health it won't kill you and it can be worth the trade-off if you end up better positioned. Also, be slightly careful about hugging walls Hanzo could potentially be behind because if he shoots an arrow through it, you may not have any time to react. With Bastian, my number one tip is to just not underestimate his ultimate. Remember that direct hits will one-shot you and that Mercy's hitbox becomes pretty chonky during Valkyrie. Try to damage boost allies attacking Bastian and get your team to focus on him. One thing I've noticed from watching mid to low rank gameplay is that Bastian is often easier to kill when he's ulting. There's less of a constant wave of damage, and also many Bastians move around during their ult as opposed to just staying behind a shield in the back, making them an easier target. With Symmetra, the most important thing to remember is that Mercy can heal through shields, but the person you're paired with probably can't. This means you want to be aware of where your second support is positioned so you know who they can and cannot cover. Generally, don't be afraid to pop Valk when Symmetra ult since you can beam people on both sides. With Torbjorn, there's really not much to say besides avoid flying through it, and watch out for it being flung in the air or behind you since he may want you to backpedal into it. With Echo, be aware that when she copies someone, she'll get their ult incredibly fast, so it's crucial to shut her down with damage boost. As for avoiding being copied, you can try hiding behind stuff, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. Her range is huge, and if she copies you, it means she can't copy someone with an offensive ult like Genji, so it's not the end of the world. With Sombra, when I suspect EMP, I try to hug cover since breaking line of sight blocks it, and I intentionally keep distance from my second support so only one of us can get hit by it. Also, the way EMP works is Sombra starts the voice line, ascends into the air, and then the effect is applied to the other team. This means if you're fast enough at reacting, you can activate Valkyrie during EMP's cast time. With Ashe, you can't out-heal Bob, but he'll only do 10 damage to a target you're healing, which can be good to know. Once Bob locks onto a target, he won't change unless they become invalid, so it can be pretty easy to see who needs help. Besides that, use your own judgment. If your team is focusing him, help out where you can. With Widow, I like to become overly self-conscious about my movement and try to play safe. I'm especially cautious going for reses she can get an angle on with grapple shot. Also, Widow's ult lasts 15 seconds, so I try to look at the round timer and figure out when it'll be over and let my team know when it's down. With Cassidy, you know the drill. Don't be out in the open, be careful about super jumping, mainly stick behind cover during ult so it's not an issue if he pops High Noon during Valkyrie. Also, always remember that there's no voice line for when High Noon expires or is manually cancelled, so listen out for indicators that it's over like shots or flashbang. I've had matches where I felt stuck in one position because I couldn't tell if Cass was still ulting, making me easy to find. With Soldier, like Cassidy, just don't get caught out in the open. If you're truly desperate, you can hide behind allies to throw the tracker off, but you should generally only do this with your tanks since they can, well, tank the damage. With Mei, I've always had two go-to tips. The first is to remember that it takes roughly 2.5 seconds to freeze you, meaning you can briefly walk in a blizzard and out of it. Secondly, Mei's ult is LOS based. This means you can sometimes see the indication circle go through walls, but the actual effect won't follow it. With Junkrat, when I hear Reptire, I like to break my beam and go hide, assuming I can afford to. Junkrat's voice line is directional, so if you're in Valkyrie, it can be pretty easy to find him and pistol him down. Be careful with this though, especially if you're close to the floor and or terrain, because a lot of Junkrats will just detonate the tire on you if they see you coming. Other than that, damage boost allies attacking the tire or try to pistol it yourself. With Pharah, just try to watch the skies and look out for flanks, like make a mental note if she appears to be missing from a fight, especially if your team is about to walk through a choke point. Generally, I'll assume I cannot heal allies through barrage and try to kill her faster with damage boost instead. With Tracer, she gets ult very fast, so you can safely assume she'll have it often, and you can kind of tell by the way she comes towards you that she's trying to stick. My two evergreen tips against Tracer are always play as far back as you can so she can't just blink to you and stick, or take advantage of the fact that you have vertical mobility and she doesn't. When I say this, what I mean is super jump to get to high ground rather than using super jump to hover above a fight. The latter can be worth doing if you suspect an immediate stick, but Tracer's range means she can still do pretty good damage against a Mercy that's only 10 meters off the ground. Also, Pulse Bomb is often comboed with Graviton Surge, so watch out for that. Tracer gets it a lot faster, so you can generally tell if she's holding it for Grav. With Reaper, you can generally tell when he has ult because he'll wraith towards a group of enemies or teleport onto high ground around them. I basically play around Death Blossom the way I do Grav, making sure my team is spread out, and so am I. With Genji, there's basically an art to dodging his swings, and it all comes down to playing around his dash resets. Generally, you want to keep good track on his position before he ults, keep distance, and then when he dashes to someone, GA to another ally. I like to try and cancel GA as soon as I can so the cooldown comes back as fast as possible, since I'll probably need to reposition again soon. Also, Genji gets his dash reset when he ults, so many will dash, ult, dash. This means that playing high in the air often won't guarantee your safety, so always stay alert. With Ana, you should look at the enemy team and ask yourself who she's likely to target so you can prepare yourself for it. Do they have Reinhardt? Do they have Genji? Nanoblade is one of the strongest things against Mercy because she's so often paired with another main healer, meaning you rarely have a defensive ult for it. Because of that, you really want to be looking out for teammates that are actively shutting down Genji and damage boost them when possible. With Baptiste, the main tip is to just avoid clumping together with your team, especially in front of choke points, which Mercy should do anyway. Generally, I want to either fall back with my team until Bap's ult is over, or focus damage boost on those who are ignoring it, whether they're simply pushing past it or attacking from an off angle. With Brigitte, Rally gives the enemy team armor. Now, armor reduces a certain amount of damage from every shot. If that shot is above 10 damage, armor will block 5. If the shot is below 10 damage, it will be halved. Still with me? Good. This means shotguns like Reaper and weapons that fire fast but do smaller damage like Sombra and Tracer are somewhat weaker against armor. On the flip side, large amounts of damage from a single shot is very effective against armor, so things like sniper shots, Pharah rockets and so on. Because armor also does nothing to damage over time effects like dynamite, Ashe can be an especially strong blue beam target. Briggs' Rally actively gives armor for 10 seconds, and then once it's over, it can be worth popping Valkyrie and using mass damage boost to burst through it, so consider tracking that time in your head or by watching enemy health bars. With Lucio, Sound Barrier can be used offensively or defensively. Either way, most Lucios will use their speed during it. If you're positioned quite forward, make sure you're keeping track of the allies behind you or on high ground so you can easily fall back. It's fairly common to see Lucio paired with a Reinhardt, and you don't want to get run over by him because you weren't aware of escape options. With Mercy, it's easier said than done, but if you're both using Valkyrie, you want to be the Mercy that pushes damage boost the most, because her healing isn't great against large amounts of damage. If you do have a lot of injured allies and you aren't confident committing to the blue beam, then just try to push small flicks when you're getting a lot of hit markers. Also, this is going to sound very I'm not owned, but sometimes you'll have moments where your team has lost the fight, only you're alive, and ulting enemy Mercy tries to pistol you down. Assuming that it's fine to die here, it's actually a good thing if she's the one that kills you because she doesn't generate ult charge while ulting, whereas one of her allies might. With Moira, keep in mind that Coalescence pierces through shields, but that shouldn't really be an issue. On her own, it takes Moira 3 seconds to kill someone at 200 HP with her ult, so be careful about doing long GAs in front of her, especially if you're going to super jump. Obviously it's important to consider outside factors, but I will sometimes just damage boost allies through Coalescence if they're attacking her, since Moira can't fade away and her time to kill is probably slower than my boosted ally. With Zenyatta, there's not much for Mercy to do here. If your team is also running Ana, you may want to keep a close eye on her when you suspect Transcendence so she doesn't have to nade herself and instead can save it as a counter.